Well, Christian, in terms of the production on that track, Magic Show, in the chorus of the song, I'm detecting an additional ambiance above and beyond the instruments and the voices. Is there some kind of sound effect or reverb trick going on in there?
God, what did I do on that song? When the chorus hits, it's an arpeggiated riff in C, and at that point, I believe there's two acoustic guitars, and then I introduce both an acoustic 12-string and also a ghosting electric guitar that is way, way back there, but it just brings forward a little bit of the mid-range that I needed to have pop in that section. And then the bass line, which is what I like so much about that chorus, which is it's just this repeating arpeggio with the bass moving underneath it, is both bass and piano playing that. And then you've got also the quarter notes playing high up on the piano, just so this repetitive piece.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear that because I can tell intuitively that something happens in that chorus, and now you're talking about 12-string and a subtle electric guitar. Sometimes you get lucky and your elements just bang together and you get a nice overtone, but this sounded very, it was definitely a technique that I had never heard before. Like, it wasn't like strings per se, but there was some extra thing, and now that you've said that...
That's exactly right. That's what I'm going for. But I will tell you that I feel that producers like T-Bone Burnett, who are so good at getting, or Daniel Lanois, who are so good at getting one single guitar to really take up the space in the track, as long as it's mic'd right and it's the right choice of guitar and it's the right part. That's actually harder for me to do. I'm a layerer. I will stack up a bunch of things in one section of a song and then either add something or subtract something in the next section of the song to help with the dynamics.
Now here's the thing, you know when to stop fiddling with it and when you've got it. I know a lot of people don't. It gets too cluttered, it gets too muddy, and you know how to be tasteful about it, because to my ear, I like to be able to identify every element. If it's one really great guitar with one really great voice, great. If it's the Beatles singing the intro for Nowhere Man, I can pick out each voice.
Right.
If it's Mormon Tabernacle Choir, what you get at that point is just an effect, because you can't make out individual voices.
Well, you'd be surprised how much I do layer. There's a lot of things going on, again, that I employ to fill in the sonics. I'm looking for a particular wall of sound, and I don't mean that like Phil Spector's reverb, but to have all the frequencies represented in the right way, so things aren't empty or thin or hollow or however it is. I'm looking for a particular sound. I'm also a big Queen fan, early Queen fan. Mm-hmm. So watching how Brian May would layer guitars, and then watching Freddie build all those vocals and having all that stuff to point counterpoint, it was hugely influential on me, because it was orchestration. Mm-hmm. And that's a lot of what we've done on this record with Circe's vocals, is to use them as metaphoric string parts and horn parts.
This next one has become something of a fan favorite, Mr. Lemon's Sweet Revenge. It's definitely a catchy tune, and it appears to be about a misfit who is not only out of sync with his surroundings, but seems to be angry about it and prone to action, which is a dangerous combination. So what's the significance of this character?
Well, every story needs a bad guy, so he's our bad guy. But he's the kind of bad guy that essentially, just like every bad guy, he has his version of right and wrong. He has his version of how the world would be best, and he's wanting to implement his vision of the world for everybody else. It's a medicine that maybe people don't want, but he thinks it's good for everybody.
Okay, so there's a line in there I was going to ask you about where it says his revenge is a good thing for you and me. So you're basically saying that in his mind it is, but for no one else it is. Okay, good.
Exactly.
I'm glad you said that. Now, at the end of the first verse, there's a somewhat unintelligible comment performed by Christian, presumably in character as Mr. Lemon. I can't quite make out exactly what he's saying. Do you want to reveal that bit of text, or would you rather perpetuate the mystery?
Yeah, it says, "Hey, you kids, get off my lawn."
Is that what it is?
That's what it is.
Okay,
yeah.
because I was guessing something like that. I mean, the tone implies that, and I was listening for the exact words. But because I have a really good ear, and I didn't necessarily get that, I didn't know if you guys just figured everybody would know or not. So I've been funny.
There's a lot of little Easter eggs throughout the record that are really buried. They're just barely audible.
Yeah.
So the headphone listen is definitely the way to go for this record.
Yeah, I love the tight harmonies in the chorus, by which I mean the close proximity of the notes to each other, tight in that sense. Reminds me of the Hollies. I'd love to hear you guys cover The Air That I Breathe sometime. But you guys would kill on that.
That's actually, oddly enough, it's a trick that I stole from in that chorus from And Your Bird Can Sing, where the one vocalist sings one note, the tonic, another vocalist sings the fifth, and then the other two vocalists are singing a parallel harmony. And so you have all of these suspended and thick chords going on all the time because you have these two notes that are just pedaling all the way through.
And I also like when the chords go into, the pulse remains, but the chords go into sort of a halftime feel and the effect that has on the melody, which really sort of thrusts it forward to me. It's a quality songwriting.
Thank you very much.
So let's give bitter old Mr. Lemon his chance to shine. This is track 5 on the album. It's called Mr. Lemon's Sweet Revenge.
Sadly, Mr. Lemon doesn't care for the sunshine as cars go rushing. People go brushing on by him. On the corner giving dark monologues, he sees smog roll above them, but no one to love. He sees rubber faces showing traces of their wasted half-lives. Bleeding in the gutter, Mr. Lemon's old newsprint, inky and stupid, foretelling the truth is outdated, overrated in the grand scheme of things. He goes everywhere dreaming, plotting and scheming. He hates the changes, cannot face it, so he plans his great surprise. Mr. Lemon's sweet revenges, all he wants the world to see. Although Mr. Lemon's sweet revenges, far from splendid, it's good for you and me. Mr. Sad can't make a happy face. All work, no play. Mr. Long's face, you're such a sourpuss. Great A, bad
Well, it's definitely a standout track. You got some interesting vocal counterpoint going on. It's almost operatic. You mentioned Queen. In the 1930s, there was less of a distinction between pop music and opera. A lot of hit songs back then with operatic vocal performances. And even though we didn't hear it, at the very end of the song, the last line says, Mr. Lemon supposes all thorns have roses, and with this prognosis, he smiles. So does he kind of finally recognize his own ridiculousness, or
let you guys read the story and figure that part out.
Okay, well, he seems happy. And speaking of happy, when I saw the title of the next track, Lost at Sea, I was all mentally prepared for a minor key. So when the major arpeggio comes in, I thought, wait, we're happy about being lost at sea? I guess because it can be a good thing under the right circumstances if it's figurative and not literal. Your harmonies are excellent throughout the album, but as always, but I think they particularly shine here. They're almost choir-like, and the acoustic guitar bed is the perfect setting for them, and Crosby, Stills, and Nash would be proud. Now, lyrically, it appears to be about a sense of confusion and a bit of homesickness and regret, possibly?
Sure, yeah. It's about finding yourself in the middle of a tumultuous situation and wishing that you could go back home.
Those harmonies that you mentioned, that was something that Circe had built earlier, and this was one of the couple of the songs that we actually, this song and the next song were songs that we sort of pulled out from the archives and realized that they matched, so those really cool harmonies with a slight adjustment on like one or two notes, I think, is all Circe's arrangement. So.
Actually, that song was written after I had the concept, and I knew I wanted to have a moment there that expressed that particular forlorn, sad, tragic, questioning moment that the protagonist is experiencing in the story. Madhouse was a song that actually I had tucked away and had been brooding upon for quite some time, and it fit perfectly. So, but Lost at Sea was actually not written until after the concept was fully formed in my mind.
Is that true? Okay, I messed that.
Yeah, you were out of the house when I wrote it.
Okay.
And then you came home, and I'm like, hey, I wrote this. It sucks. Do you like it?
I will say also that Lost at Sea and Notes from the Madhouse have the most deliberate segue, and we had to. We actually had a palette from Notes from the Madhouse from a long time before, and we had to nudge and re-sing Lost at Sea in the new tempo because they're at exactly the same tempo. So,
well, it's interesting that you guys talk about these two as a match set and that you single out that segue because, ironically, in my notes here, I was going to do exactly that. I was going to play Lost at Sea, I was going to play the segue, and a bit of Notes from the Madhouse without saying so, and then people would, because it has a demonstration of that crossfading, and that is one of the better examples, and I was going to do that anyways, and it seems like that's on everybody's brain because you kind of set up both tracks. So let's do that. Let's listen to those, and then we'll talk about the lyrics for Notes from the Madhouse in a little more detail. So let's start with track 6 on Bird's Amazing Odyssey and the Meaning of Tea. This is Lost at Sea.
I'm a little bird, and I've lost, but never found. No, don't speak a word, for I'm trying to tell what's up or down. Cannot find a way to make out what is heads or tails. Cannot catch a break for my ship tatters as she sails. So send me home. Won't you help me, please? Send me home, for I'm lost at sea. Lost at sea. Lost at sea. Lost at sea.
Well, as we said, that was track 7, Notes from the Madhouse, and I played those two together to demonstrate the crossfading segue style. And musically, I mean, that one's the furthest from the old-timey vaudeville thing. I mean, it's more of a Led Zeppelin 3 kind of feel.
You nailed it.
You've got lines in there about drowning and dragging the lake, not a pleasant prospect for someone lost at sea. You also mentioned setting monsters loose and suicide ladies in love with Hades. So how did we wander into this dark place?
Well, this is a place that the bird comes to on its journey and witnesses what happens to people who let creativity run its craziest course, which I think is a common discussion many people have had about the arts, is that do you have to be crazy to make great music or poetry or paintings or any sort of artistic endeavor? Do you have to have insanity fueling truly great art? And also, I used a lot of literary references in there. There's Virginia Woolf and Anne Sexton and Sylvia Plath and Mary Shelley Wollstonecraft and Lord Byron and Michael Nesmith, actually. So it's a pretty deep lyric undertaking if you want to go through and parse out all the literary references.
And in terms of the very heavy, Jimmy Page-esque music, so when Circe brought you this song and sang it, did that heavy music occur to you, or was it sort of implied? And did you have chords for that, Circe, or did you just sing it out?
I did, some
Okay.
of them, but Christian came up with the lick. So, I often, when Christian's gone, I'll sometimes write. And any guitar in our house may be in a different tuning, and I just happened to pick up a C tuning, open C, and I really was enjoying writing on it. And so I wrote that song with my very remedial strumming. I was trying to come up with a nice rhythmic pulse to have this battery of lyric over. And so when I showed it to him, he fixed it.
The song that you're thinking of on Zeppelin 3 is a song called Friends.
Yeah.
And that's always been a favorite of mine, and it also happens to be in drop C tuning, so the ear is definitely going to go there.
Yeah, obviously did think of that, but also it's just the vibe of the recording reminded me it could have dropped anywhere on Zeppelin 3 alongside Friends. And at the end of the track, there's a pretty ominous and foreboding sound effect that's akin to the boots of an army on the march. What's that symbolizing?
Well, the monotony of insanity, the progression of the wheel of thought that you can't escape, and I think the sound of the marching boots symbolizes that quite well.
Yeah, the song being in C pretty much the whole time is relentless, and to have this trudging army coming straight at you or being carried along with it is sonically symbolic. It works.
Yeah, it does. And speaking of things that work, I'm reminded of Frank Capra's movies. He always said that one of his secrets was to take his character and at some point, like in the middle of the movie, bring them so low. Like if you think about George Bailey in A Wonderful Life when he's suicidal and crying at the bar, so that at the end, when you can rise them up. So to me, this is like the emotional low point. But it's not the musical low point because it's a kick-ass track. So, but musically and lyrically, it's so different. You know that this bird took it wasn't. We're not, in the earlier tracks anymore. There's some serious stuff going on now.
Yeah, it's definitely the emotional, most traumatic part of the whole story. It is the emotional crux that the bird must pass through.
But fortunately for our collective mental health, the spirit of the next song rebounds significantly from that insanity. It even harkens back to your earlier song, Random Act of Kindness. So how does the kindness of strangers fit into the story? It brings us back to believing in people again?
Yeah, absolutely. That there are good people everywhere, that there are strangers willing and wanting to help one another in this world, and that when you're lost and hurt and broken, there will be people that will come to your aid. Like Goethe said, be brave and mighty forces will come to your aid.
Well, that has been my experience. When people say people are basically good and everybody gets all sarcastic, and I believe they are, they have to be. The world wouldn't be what it is if people weren't basically good. If most people weren't.
That's right, and that cynicism is awful. There's no need to believe in that. That's just scared people that don't know what else to say. That's not true. We have to fight that. That's not right.
Well, let's fight it right now with track 8 on the album. This is called The Kindness of Strangers.
You've had a bad dream. It's okay, because I know what it means. Weary young traveler, come lay your head. I've got the room and you're needing a friend. Bleary old wanderer, I'll mend your wing, sewing you up where you've torn at the seam. You can stay in my house, I will feed you and clean you. You can play here out loud and we'll all sing along. You have passed all the clouds and beyond all the danger. You can rely on the kindness of strangers. You can rely on the kindness of strangers, of strangers, of
Well, last time you were here, we played a clip of Paul Williams complimenting Circe singing and saying her voice was as pure as Karen Carpenter's. And, I could definitely imagine Karen Carpenter singing that song. If you go back and listen to it with that in mind, I mean, you kind of, not to say anything bad about Circe's performance, but if you were to put on your Karen Carpenter impersonation, I think you'd see that. It's too bad she's not around to cover it anymore, but I think it was well suited for
Well,
her.
I'm not sure she has that range, quite honestly.
I just mean that the attitude of it and her
Sure.
voice would fit that type of song. But no, you're right. You're
Yeah.
better. You're better than her. I agree.
No. I don't know if you noticed on the outro, which is something that Christian was able to coerce out of me. I wasn't sure where he was going, but he had a definite idea of what he wanted to hear me do, and he had me go higher and higher and higher in the outro. Really taking advantage of the fact that I have a wide range in my voice.
I haven't actually heard enough Carpenter's recordings to really think about her vocal range. It does seem like she used to sing a lot pretty close to her speaking voice, pretty low for a female singer.
Yes.
But her voice was about clarity, kind of like Nat King Cole, as the quality of his voice was more important than sort of the range. You didn't hear him go nuts with that. But no, I mean, I'll take you over. And when I say, you're obviously all three of us and everybody listening should know, we're kidding.
Yes.
She's an iconic legend.
you're
You're on your way to being an iconic legend. She reached that point, and of course, she's another one of those tragic stories. Well, we're up to my personal favorite track on the album, Fortune Cookie. It's got a nice bluesy piano intro with a touch of Gershwin. So what's the diameter of the bass drum on that track?
It's the size of 16 or 17 megabytes.
What I mean is, it sounds like a marching band bass drum being hit with a mallet instead of a kick drum. It sounds like boom.
Well, it's a sample.
Yeah.
All the drums are played by me on a keyboard through a program called TuneTrack, Superior Drummer by TuneTrack, and that particular drum is a sample of a 30-inch Camco double-sided drum. So there you go.
Yeah, my ear that's not what you usually hear. And the way the rhythm of the song goes and the space really lets you hear it down there on the bottom, too. So it wasn't like it was snuck into a big production. It's like it's It's the boom boom is the bottom of that whole track. So you're using cookie as a nickname or a term of endearment, as in find your fortune, comma, cookie. That's the power of punctuation for you right there.
Yes, indeed.
Now, the message of the song seems to be, okay, you've gone out and seen the world and had some incredible life-altering experiences, so now what?
Yeah, pretty much. This is the point in the story where the bird meets the sage, and the sage says, hey, kid, you can't go back. You can't undo where you've come from. You can't unring the bell, and now you got to go out in the world and figure it out.
I pick up a Steely Dan vibe from this one. The guitar solo has that laid-back, clean and bluesy feel that they often employ. I don't know if Steely Dan's ever used this rhythm before. They should. It's well-suited for them. Or they should just cover your song so you can get paid.
Yeah, will you call Don and tell him? Tell him he can do it for free. I won't. He doesn't even have to.
He doesn't have to do the licensing.
Yeah.
I'll pass it along.
He and Becker, go for it. Can I come over and watch?
I'll pass it
along.
along.
I will say that this song, like so many songs on the record, and it was definitely by choice, yet again employs eighth notes on the right hand on the piano. Some of the songs I actually used a guitar, like Mr. Lemon or Invisible Man, and some of the songs I actually used piano. But that was sort of a guiding theme in one way or another, except for some of the odder songs like Madhouse, to have that plodding right hand to create the chords. So it was definitely intentional. And this is the second to the last song that does it, so I figured I'd jump in here and say that was one of the methods we employed.
Yeah.
Also, musically, we chose to keep that song really sparse. Many of the songs on the record and many of the songs in our entire catalog have lots of illustrations with voices or different instruments or left turns in the bridge, and we made a very conscious decision to keep this song laid back, very slinky, very simple, and to allow the guitar to really take precedent. And the lyric is also quite an exercise in restraint. I wanted to have certain words repeat in every stanza. I also wanted to never actually reference food until the final stanza. It was the whole song was really an exercise in restraint, if you ask me.
Well, the fact that you guys do, make these dramatic changes in style, well, you said you're doing a pulse that's kind of tying the tunes together maybe in a subconscious level, which I'll obviously listen for next time I listen to the album. But it makes you feel like you're on a journey, and that's sort of the point of it, this chapter, that chapter. So let's experience this one, track 9 on the album. Let's all enjoy a little taste of this fortune cookie.